Hey, howdy. It's me again, talking to you about Edmonton Oilers trade rumors. Yeah, unfortunately I am. Anyway, friends, good afternoon. Welcome to Dolany TV. This is Dolany TV as we get set to re-explore the magical, wonderful land that is Erik Karlsson trade rumors. I'm sorry to those of you who are a little tired of the trade rumors, but again today, popping up in the news just literally as soon as the game's wrapping up against the Ottawa Senators. Now it sounds like the Oilers have some kind of wheel in motion when it comes to Erik Karlsson, or more specifically, gauging the trade market for a defenseman. I'll have more details on that in a matter of moments. But before we get there, friends, I want you to consider, if you're new to the channel, hitting that subscribe button here on Dolany TV. I'd love to have you aboard for everything and all things Edmonton Oilers. Plus, by the way, we just hit 10,500 of us crazy Oilers fans here. You could be part of that next 500 on our way to 11,000. Either way, I could waste all your time blabbering about nothing, or I could simply put this graphic up on the screen, and I'm going to do that for you instead. Chris Johnston, reporter Chris, obviously on Twitter, right, big time NHL insider. He was on the Get Your Back podcast post game for the Oilers with Ryan Rishaug, and had a lot to say about what was happening here in the background of the past few days with the Edmonton Oilers and San Jose Sharks phone calls. His tweet right here, this is not me making anything up. This is a legit NHL insider saying something, as has been all my rumors for the past little while. Word is the Sharks and Oilers have re-engaged on Erik Karlsson trade discussions. There are considerable financial hurdles on both ends, but it's at least the second time this season they've explored a potential fit. So right, there's obviously on the Oilers end, you can't even afford right now to activate Kyler Yamamoto off of LTIR. How are you going to afford to fit in Erik Karlsson at about $11 million, give or take, whether you get anywhere between 0 to 50% retained, which would bring him down to, I guess, somewhere in that $6 million range. But no matter what you're doing with the Oilers, you've got to figure out how you would possibly make that work. And I want to make this clear, okay? This is something I don't want to waste anyone's time. If you want my definitive opinion on Erik Karlsson to the Oilers, is Daniel Nugent Bowman today as well said, while it's possible, it's highly unlikely. That's number one. Number two, I do not see any world in which the Oilers are able to simultaneously fit Erik Karlsson and Darnell Nurse under the same cap this season. I mean, you'd have to pillage the roster for players out to be able to make this happen. And whether you like Warren Fogle, whether you like Jesper Puljujärvi, Derek Ryan, a guy like Tyson Barrie, Evan Bouchard, all those guys, right? Brett Kulak to an extent, Cody Ceci, is you would have to part ways with multiple of those players just to make something like this happen. And that is, of course, the toughest part. Even Kyler Yamamoto, lump him into that sum of players that you would have to look at heavily to ship to San Jose. I think the bare minimum San Jose is going to allow a team to get away with them retaining is 40% of Karlsson's contract, and that is where, of course, we'll turn to old cap friendly and allow us to find some numbers. And I mentioned cap friendly because they pointed out to the general Twitter audience the other day that, hey, folks, when you use our stuff, just at least credit us, would you? And that's where it's kind of one of those things. That's something I haven't been so keen on this year, is crediting, well, all my sources as per usual. So let's discuss that right there. Cap Friendly, an excellent resource if you ever need to figure anything out. And Erik Karlsson at $11.5 million. So right there, even at 50%, you're pretty much looking at $6 million of salary. So at about 40%, the math between Rishaug and Johnston there on the Get Your Back podcast alongside Gregor was about $7 million is the minimum that it's going to cost the Oilers on a cap hit to acquire Erik Karlsson for the rest of the season. Now, Erik Karlsson's been having a fantastic year this year, by far and above his best year in San Jose from everything I can gauge. Right, he's a guy who right now is 32 years old on a deal until 2027, so he's about going to be 36, 37 by the time that deal wraps up. And you look at this right now, he's had 70 points this year, which actually by a large margin is his second, third best, I guess fourth best season, but very well on pace to be his best season ever with 70 points in 53 games. And guess what? The San Jose Sharks are still a dumpster fire of a team. So that's where obviously San Jose would like to A, alleviate the cap constraints, and B, bring in picks and obviously talent to the organization for their rebuild, but also cash in while a guy like Erik Karlsson is riding a high as an anomaly for a season within San Jose. Yeah, sure, I guess he's played 53, 56, 52, 50 games and put up more than almost half a point a game at bare minimum in the San Jose Sharks uniform, but he's still a guy that the Sharks now see as a 17 point above point per game player right now, and why not try and capitalize that for a defenseman that is aging rather rapidly, right? He's up there at 32. You're rebuilding. You don't want to hold on to a guy like that forever unless there is some kind of big change. So yes, does this make sense that the Oilers are talking to the San Jose Sharks about Erik Karlsson? Yes, and here's why. I mentioned it a few minutes ago, is for the Oilers is you've got to gauge the trade market. And this is not even, right, as Daniel Nugent-Bowman said in my quote earlier, is, well, it's possible, it's highly unlikely. And what Chris Johnston followed up his statement on the Oilers and Sharks talking, he followed it up, no matter what, by March 4th, the Oilers will have a new D-man. I think we all know that for sure. I think, right, another possibility has been traded in Nico Mikkola. He was a guy possibly available to the Edmonton Oilers, and he instead goes with Vladimir Tarasenko over to the New York Rangers. But when you shake it all down for the Oilers is the reason why, in my opinion, you would talk to the San Jose Sharks about Erik Karlsson is, well, twofold. You could potentially acquire a superstar defenseman, but B, you can gauge the trade market value, right? If all of a sudden, 3 weeks ago, we were talking about the max the Sharks were willing to retain was about 18% on Karlsson, and now there's talks that you could potentially, according to Gregor, get him down to 40% retained from the Sharks. Well, hey, right? Is the market is shifting. The market is changing out there for the Oilers on the defensive side. And now when you put that into terms of a guy like Gavrikov or a guy like Edmondson or a guy like Chychrun or a guy like anyone out there in the realm, even Matthias Ekholm, is suddenly the market is maybe changing on all those guys, not just Karlsson, right? Karlsson has not fallen off the pace. He's still way above point per game. He's the Sharks' best player by far. And right now, right, what's he doing? He's just having a great season on a crappy team. But now it seems like the market's shifted a little bit out there for the Oilers. And if Karlsson, the top biggest fish possible, right? If you want, as the Edmonton Oilers, to make the biggest splash possible in the NHL trade deadline, it's either Erik Karlsson or Patrick Kane. That's the only way the Oilers wow everybody at the NHL trade deadline. So when you look at that right now, is yes, it 100% makes sense to look at Karlsson and say, is this at all in the realm of possibility? Yeah, but not going to happen. And then you take that homework, you take that information, all those paper notes that Ken Holland's written down on the conversations with Mike Greer down there in San Jose, and you say, cool, okay, that's what Karlsson's worth, that's what we can do to get him, that's who they're interested in. Okay, Columbus, what do you want for Gavrikov? Okay, Montreal, guess what, Edmonton's value, just we could spend a couple more assets and get Karlsson, but you can give us Edmonton for a better deal because of that, right? And like Matthias Ekholm, even though he's kind of disappeared into the realm of unavailable, is still a guy like that. All of a sudden, if Karlsson's value changes, his value changes. And that's the beauty here for the Oilers. Is now this is not so much a trade rumor as this is sign and proof of life that Ken Holland is well and above doing his job and doing his homework headed into the NHL trade deadline. This is the best part of this, right? Is it does. Like, I mean, you can get all dreamy about Erik Karlsson to the Edmonton Oilers, but more than likely, the only way to make it work is to cost yourself Darnell Nurse, and then you ask the complexion of the defense, does anything change by adding Erik Karlsson far and above? I mean, maybe, because of what we saw at the All-Star game, but that's also the All-Star game, so you could sit here and really play a numbers game a million times over if you're an Oilers fan. But the nice part is the only thing you need to take away from this video today is that there is an appearance that the market is slightly changing for defensemen in the NHL right now. The Oilers are in need to acquire one, and Ken Holland is doing his homework. That's the beauty of all this. Friends, I'm Tyson, this is Stolany TV. Thank you so much for tuning in. Like I said right off the top, if you're new to the channel, I'd love to have you aboard for more Edmonton Oilers content here on the channel. Consider hitting that subscribe button on your way out, and I will catch you in the next one.